Hello, everyone, and good morning. I'm Jason Marczak, the director of the Adrienne Arsht Latin America Center at the Atlantic Council here, and great to have everyone for this very important event on how the global community can further support the Venezuelan people. And I want to start off again by thanking USAID and the Inter-American Development Bank for all three of us being co-hosts in today's event. As all of you know, January 23rd is an incredibly important day. 1 year ago today, Juan Guaido took the presidential oath, and today is recognized as the legitimate interim president of Venezuela by nearly 60 countries. Today, the 1 year mark, is also an important moment to show our support for the democratic will of the Guaido interim government and the fight for Venezuelan freedom. Despite so much adversity the democratic forces face, as well as the adversity faced by the Venezuelan people, it's also important to recognize the commitment of the United States and the international community in seeking to help the Venezuelan people, most notably in delivering assistance to Venezuelans both in the country as well as across the region. Innovative solutions to helping Venezuelans and the communities in which they live across Latin America is more needed today than yesterday, and will be more vital even further moving forward. That's why we're all here today. Some of you as well are watching via live stream, and why we are co-hosting this event as outreach partners for the Better Together Juntos es Mejor Challenge, which is a collaborative effort between USAID and IDB. We're going to learn more about the challenge today. Both John Barsa and Ray Hofman will talk about in greater detail, which officially kicked off only a few months ago and now counts many organizations among its partners, many of whom are here today. So thank you to all those other organizations. You can tweet during the event using the hashtags TogetherVE or JuntosVE, the two hashtags of the Venezuela Regional Challenge. We're going to speak in greater length this morning about the challenge, which is a response to the dire humanitarian situation in Venezuela, and also an initiative to improve lives in the communities around the region. You all know why this effort is so important. The United Nations has estimated that 5 million Venezuelans left the country by the end of last year. As Venezuelan migrants and refugees travel, they face countless challenges, from finding housing to schooling to increasing xenophobia and discrimination. UNHCR stats show that only 2 million Venezuelan migrants have legal permits, and those who continue to stay in Venezuela face persistent barriers in their access to basic necessities. Potable water, food, medicine, all extremely difficult to attain. Electrical blackouts are incredibly common. If current trends continue, estimates vary from anywhere from 6.5 million to 8 million Venezuelans who could be living abroad by the end of this year. We unveiled last week a recent poll here of Venezuelans, which showed a relatively consistent number over the last year. About 1/3 of Venezuelans, when asked if they had the opportunity to leave the country, would they leave the country? And the answer is yes. 2020 will be a pivotal for marshaling renewed regional and global support to end Maduro's rule and to bring relief to the Venezuelan people. It's imperative that the global community work even more collaboratively to solve this crisis and to help improve the lives of Venezuelans in the country and beyond. That's why we're so important to host this event today. I also going to invite you afterwards. I know some of you participated beforehand, but we'll also invite people to stay afterwards and participate in the documentary Walking for Freedom, a Venezuelan story. It's produced by the Plan País organization, and it's an immersive 360-degree documentary where you can use virtual reality goggles to actually walk with Venezuelan migrants as they're leaving the country, crossing into Colombia, and searching for greater opportunities. We're going to start off now. I'm pleased to queue up a video with special remarks from Mark Green, the administrator of the U.S. Agency for International Development. Mark was unable to join us in person, but he sent these remarks. After this video, we will then begin with a panel discussion.
A mere 12 years ago, Juan Guaido was an everyday university student like so many others. But when he joined in student-led demonstrations in support of free speech, he felt the call to public service. That call eventually brought him to lead Venezuela's National Assembly, working on behalf of his country. And 1 year ago today, when Nicolas Maduro went to steal yet another election, the National Assembly rightfully appointed Juan Guaido interim president. Since then, Guaido has proven his unwavering leadership and courage over and over again. He has served as a beacon of liberty and freedom for those who have suffered so much from Maduro's brutality, tyranny, and corruption. Guaido has often risked his own safety in defying Maduro's illegitimate regime and standing with the Venezuelan people in their fight to restore democracy, justice, and freedom. Since that historic day, the U.S. and USAID have stood in solidarity with the interim government in support of a free, prosperous, and democratic Venezuela. Together with the State Department, we have provided more than $654 million in assistance to people inside Venezuela, but also across the region. Inside the country, with the help of our partners, we've delivered more than 1.4 million meals and provided enough medical supplies for 160,000 people. We've also successfully vaccinated 9 million children against measles and supplied safe drinking water to 350,000 people in need. USAID's assistance is also reaching Venezuelans who've been forced to flee to neighboring countries. Our support is helping to meet immediate needs like food and water, and also stem the spread of infectious diseases. We're also providing assistance to communities that are generously hosting those who've been forced to flee Maduro's tyranny. But even as we extend this support, we're looking ahead to the future. In 2019, I signed the first bilateral assistance agreement between USAID and Venezuela in decades. This agreement allows us to assist entities like the National Assembly that keep the flame of democracy alive within Venezuela and provide people with hope for a brighter future. We're not doing it alone. In fact, we're harnessing the ingenuity of people all around the world to help. Recently, USAID and the Inter-American Development Bank launched the Better Together Challenge to crowdsource and fund innovative solutions to some of the challenges that Venezuelans face as they fight to regain control of their country. Of course, the only real solution to Venezuela's plight will come when Maduro's tyranny and corruption are a thing of the past. So today, I'd like to deliver a special message to all Venezuelans. We recognize the bravery and courage of Juan Guaido, the National Assembly, and all those who are fighting for democracy and freedom in Venezuela. The United States and USAID are unwavering in our commitment to you and your cause, because we support your vision para una Venezuela libre. Estamos con ustedes for a free and prosperous Venezuela.
Well, that's fantastic commentary from Administrator Green to start off our discussion. Let me first start off introducing our three speakers today. To my left is John Barsa. I think known to all of you here. John is the Assistant Administrator for Latin America and the Caribbean at the U.S. Agency for International Development. John has an impressive history in both the public and private sector, including work in the Department of Homeland Security, House of Representatives, U.S. Army Reserves, and John, I'm probably missing a few things along the way there. Quite all right. Next to John is Irene Hofman. Irene is the CEO of the Inter-American Development Bank Lab. Irene works to foster innovation for inclusion across the region and also work to find market-driven solutions to assist vulnerable populations. Prior to assuming her current position, she managed the International Finance Corporation's largest portfolio. Irene, great to have you here. And next to Irene is Miguel Pizarro. Miguel is, among his many titles, Miguel is the Special Commissioner for Humanitarian Assistance for Venezuelan's interim government, a deputy as well, and also Presidential Commissioner for the United Nations. He has a history of activism in defense of human rights and free speech in the country, and again is leading the efforts of the interim government and bringing humanitarian assistance to Venezuela. Lastly, as a reminder for those, again, if you're tweeting, please, again, use a hashtag TogetherVE, JuntosVE, or if you have questions for the panel, we'll take questions later on through the audience, but if you're watching via live stream, you can submit those questions using AC Venezuela. John, I'm going to start with you. In September, a few months ago, Secretary Pompeo announced $119 million in additional funds that would be directed toward the Venezuelan crisis, and USAID has been one of the principal vehicles to deliver that assistance to Venezuela, but also across the region. How from your how does AID see the ongoing crisis, and also what are some of the different approaches that you're taking to address some of the most important issues, both in the country but also across the region? Spread of eradicated diseases, access to food, potable water, medicine, among others.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Jason. Thank the Atlantic Council for putting together this event. It's an honor to be here with Irene and Miguel, and it's also an honor to be here in the presence of Gina Montiel, the Executive Director for Venezuela and Panama at IDB. So very grateful to be here in your presence, and distinguished members of the Diplomatic Corps. At USAID, we are very proud of our efforts supporting the Venezuelan people at all levels. So certainly the funds you mentioned, the crisis that being faced by Venezuelans, it's worth repeating over and over as a reminder. This is the greatest displacement of human beings in the entire Western Hemisphere ever. It's one of the largest displacements of human beings in the world. It's one of the top ones. Certainly the scale of suffering inside the borders of Venezuela and outside the borders of Venezuela. So as Administrator Mark Green said, since 2017, in total, over $654 million has gone towards assistance of this crisis. Some of it is humanitarian aid that we've been working with implementing partners to get within the borders of Venezuela. These are things like what Administrator Green mentioned: vaccinations, food, medicine. Now, USAID and other international donors who are trying to help in Venezuela, we have been able to get this aid in at the scale that's necessary. Think back. It hasn't been quite a year yet, but when we tried to bring in the aid through Cucuta, it was blocked by armed militaries. What kind of country would find an existential threat trying to give humanitarian aid in a country? So we're trying with what we can, our implementing partners, to do what we can to get the aid to help better lives within Venezuela. This is the 1-year anniversary of Juan Guaido being the interim president. Because of that and the existence of the National Assembly, we were able to do what Mark Green mentioned in the video, which is the first bilateral agreement between the United States and the legitimate Venezuelan government, the government of interim President Guaido and the National Assembly. Through this aid, we are able to help the National Assembly do their work representing the Venezuelan people. And it's really hard to imagine and worth repeating the hardships that are going on. Some of some of us have been able to see on TV, the hardships of National Assembly members in the country, being shot at, chased, cars, National Assembly members who are disappeared. The work that they're trying to do, the governance to try to get the message out, is difficult. So in addition, on the humanitarian side, we're proud to work and support the interim government on that side. As Mark Green said, there's only one solution here. That's the end of the tyranny. But it's a regional nation, and we cannot stress our gratitude enough to the neighboring countries and neighboring communities who host displaced Venezuelans. So our support is not just to the Venezuelans themselves, but to those host communities who are suffering because of their generosity. So we're trying to help out. So that's where we stand right now.
Thank you, John. Irene, the IDB, of course, is not a development assistance organization similar to UID, but under the leadership of Luis Alberto Moreno, the bank has played an increasingly pivotal role in helping Venezuelans and the communities in which they live. I'd like for you to start off at the beginning, why the IDB sees these efforts as so pivotal, and also give a flavor for some of the other initiatives that the bank has to help Venezuelans.
Yes, thank you very much, Jason, and John. Thank you, everyone, for being here. This initiative, Juntos es Mejor, Better Together, is, as you said, Jason, one of the solutions or a mechanism that we want to leverage as part of several other efforts that, as part of the IDB group, we're doing to help Venezuelans and their host communities and the countries affected at large. So it is being led by the efforts together with USAID and the IDB lab, the innovation lab of the IDB group, previously MIF or FOMIN, for those who knew it. but it's a group effort. Our role within the IDB group is precisely to respond, as Secretary Green mentioned earlier. We also felt very strongly that call to action a year ago, and our role within the IDB group is precisely to tap into the creativity, the innovation, the entrepreneurial capacity that is out there, to find solutions that help not just Venezuelans, also their host communities, and we do strongly believe that a lot of them will be a win-win-win, even for the countries where they are. In that sense, the solutions and the innovations that will address the challenges of Venezuelans through this initiative could be taken further to scale by, for example, the migration initiative, which is a larger effort through the public arm of the IDB that is available to several other countries in the region.
Thanks, Irene. Joe, go ahead.
We're just so extremely proud of the partnership with IDB on the Better Together Challenge. So for the younger generations may understand the word crowdsourcing, maybe better than the older generations.
It's a millennial stuff.
It's a millennial crowdsourcing. So we're humble enough to know that we don't have all the answers. The Venezuelan crisis is so complex and so multifaceted that we can't come and say, aquí esto, or, do one thing. So what we've done jointly together is we who have the process, we've done this before, we've thrown it open to solutions from anywhere to any aspect of the solution. It could be solutions on how to have Venezuelans employed in the economy in Colombia. It could be solutions on how to improve the situation inside the border of Venezuela. So we've opened it up. We're so very excited about the number of applicants. And one of the telling things is the number of applicants from inside the borders of Venezuela. We're very heartened by that. We're very excited about the first batch coming through. But this is, we think it's good, this is the best of good governance. We have the structure, we have the ability to let people close to the problem come up with solutions.
It is collaboration at its best. I think the response has been overwhelming. In just a few weeks, we had over 1,000 proposals. We are reviewing the first 200 that have been completed. These proposals really address issues that are also extremely relevant and connected to the local context of where Venezuelans are, inside Venezuela and outside Venezuela in the countries where they have migrated. And yes, I think we think that they do cover the most pressing issues that these communities have.
And I'll say as an outreach partner for the challenge and being a part of the calls and all this of the last few months, it's impressive how all these proposals are from Venezuela are because of all the outreach efforts from people in this room and others, and so far as making sure that people know this challenge exists. We're going to get more into some of the specifics. I think many people in the room and watching want to know more about the challenge and the goals and whatnot. I want to first queue up a question for you, Miguel, which is a question of how you see how the crisis. I mean, you have your fingers on the pulse as well of the humanitarian needs of Venezuelan people. How do you see this crisis having evolved in just the last few months?
Well, I think first, thank you, Jason and Atlantic Council. I don't see Diego around, but thank you for the invitation. I think it's the first time I come back to back in 2 weeks, but
we'll see what's in store for next week.
Well, it's part of the several titles, but I think you summarized it well in your introduction. 1 year ago, we were speaking here about 4.3 million people needing assistance outside of a country, 4.3 refugees and migrants. Now we are more than 5 million. 1 year ago, we had less than 7 million people needing assistance inside of a country, UN numbers, not only interim numbers, UN agencies numbers. And now that number is growing to more than 9 million people needing assistance in the country. If we take those two numbers, and we see the numbers of refugee and migrants, and we see the numbers of the people needing assistance inside of a country, is half of the Venezuelan population. And it's half of the Venezuelan population in a country with oil reserve, with gold reserve, in a country with a lot of minerals, but also in a country, and this is really important to underline, this is a man-made crisis.
Yeah.
We are not in this situation because of a natural disaster. We are not in this situation because of the sanctions or because of international pressure. In the first moment we arrived to the National Assembly, 2016, the second law we tried to push forward in the National Assembly was the declaration of humanitarian emergency in Venezuela. And we were doing that because we start to see numbers and indicators that says really clear that we were going deep into an humanitarian emergency. Right now in Venezuela, 4 of every 10 kids are not growing in the way it should. A kid that not grows in the way it should because they don't have food and they don't have medicines is a kid that, when it's a teenager, doesn't have the ability to learn and to understand everything she or he needs to develop their capabilities. But also is a grown man, an adult woman, without the tools to face the society and the needs. Yesterday, Jason, a member of the parliament, Adi Valero, who was tried to be blackmailed by the regime to switch the vote and to vote for this charade they're doing with Para and the regime political party. Yesterday, that member of the parliament died. She had cancer. And she said to the regime, I prefer to die rather than betray what I believe. And maybe I will die from cancer, but Venezuela will not die because of my vote in the National Assembly. Yesterday, she passed away. And that happens because the regime blocks any way possible to have the medicines and the food we need inside of a country without the political control. That is how things are evolving inside right now. And I think we have a huge challenge in that evolution. Jason, John, and Irene, all the people here. We have to push also the international community to understand that these 2 parallel tracks, the political track and the humanitarian track, are the same. It's really easy to the international community sometimes to start looking only at the consequence of the crisis, of the political crisis in Venezuela, and stop speaking about the real cause. We can have HRP, Humanitarian Response Plan of the UN, national overview, regional appeal, but if we don't address the actual cause, the political cause of this situation, we can go around in circles for the next 10 years without having a real solution.
Miguel, as you're starting to speak there, it started to queue up. I'm going to ask you to start this video from the beginning, please. This is a video that we produced here to help to get the word out on the Venezuela challenge, and I think is a good lead into the rest of our conversation on the goals of the challenge and how all of you either here or watching can potentially participate in. And very important, Miguel, your comments and I think especially the message that this is a short-term problem that has long-term consequences, and we need to be thinking in the long term as well. But if we could cue up this video on the challenge.
5 millones de venezolanos se han visto obligados a dejar su país.
Just behind me, you can see the largest humanitarian crisis in the Western Hemisphere.
I've seen firsthand the opportunities that can be created from migration.
Nos unimos al Juntos es Mejor Challenge,
lanzado por la Agencia de los Estados Unidos para el Desarrollo Internacional y por el Banco Interamericano de Desarrollo.
Una oportunidad de buscar soluciones con las comunidades.
Te invitamos a que formes parte de esta iniciativa que busca financiar propuestas creativas, escalables y sostenibles para aliviar la crisis.
Collaborating with the challenge can help improve lives and alleviate the effects of the crisis.
Y ayudarlos en un aspecto fundamental, que es la inserción laboral.
Para que puedan tener un papel activo en la respuesta humanitaria a esta gran crisis.
La solución está en tus manos. Ingresa a juntosesmejorve.org.
Fantastic. That video will be online, and we will ask all of you to share that, disseminate that to your network so that more people can be aware of the challenge. Irene, I believe you were mentioning the crowdsourcing. And so let's drill. The challenge is $13.5 million crowdsourced, fund, scale, proposed solutions. Help the audience better understand. We started talking about beforehand, but the goals of the challenge and also how the challenge will promote solutions that are going to transform lives and also leapfrog. And I have a similar type of question for you, John, as well.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. It's a open platform. It's going to be running for 2 years. Since we launched it, as I said, it's received already over 1,000 applications, and that the applications come from could come from any country. As John said, a lot of them come from inside Venezuela, and I think address right there a lot of the issues that are most pressing, but also from a lot of the countries where Venezuelans have gone to in the region. And there are 4 tiers. You'll see everything on that platform if you go to apply. But those 4 tiers go for categories from $25,000 to $1.5 million. The type of support, in terms of financial support, is it's from grants to loans and equity. Why would we do this? I mean, we as an innovation lab as part of the IDB group, we have ourselves a very large network of foundations, non-profits, of startups. We have a lot of outreach to incubators and accelerators that can support a lot of the entrepreneurial ideas that are coming through. So in addition to the financial support, it's also an opportunity for those who apply to be connected to these larger networks in the region, and especially for those Venezuelans that, yes, of course, we want them to have the opportunities at home, but those who have already left, to know that in those communities where they are, they can have not more than just the financial assistance or the support, that they can have. They can be connected to, for example, other partners that are thinking of similar solutions, and we've seen things that are really forward-looking in terms of how to address education, how to address labor, like job and labor skills, identity, financial access to finance, and so on. So there is a whole range of solutions that come.
John,
so to add on to that, so one of the things we're trying to get out to people, maybe the assistance of people in the room, is people have to realize we've done this before. We have the background. We've run challenges before. So we have the ability of getting different ideas at their different readiness levels. Maybe you have the germ of an idea, but it's not really thought out. Well, we know how to get that innovative thought, team it up with an implementing partner, get some seed capital, and see if it grows and develops. Or we may get an idea which is fully fleshed out, and then we have the ability to work with partners to field it. So this could be products, processes, or programs. So some examples of products. From a previous challenge, we are working to combat Zika in the Western Hemisphere. So we had a Zika challenge, we called for innovation, and it wasn't from the Western Hemisphere. I think the innovative solution, forgive me, it came from somewhere in Africa. Somebody came up with an idea for little sandals that whenever you walk on the sand, a little insecticide was squirted out the side. So basically, you were combating Zika with sandals. So lo and behold, wow, who would have thought of that? Somebody did, we funded it, we fielded it, and it helped combat Zika. There was another one, he may have been from Mexico, I'm not quite sure. There was a car mechanic who came up with a tool for helping to prevent breech births. Oh. Generally speaking, you don't go to auto mechanics for assistance on breech births. But this gentleman had an idea through one of our challenges. Oh my God, this can change lives and make a difference. We were able to field it, get it together with the manufacturing, and now it is actually saving lives. We're actually fielding it. So products, processes, we have the experience to do this. We have all the attorneys, we have all the paperwork ready to go. So we're open for business, looking for ideas.
And John, from your perspective, what do you see as your optimal scenario? What is the challenge able to accomplish? What are some of the main goals that it will seek to move forward?
I have to keep it at the broad level because, again, the challenge is not descriptive. So we're not limiting, challenge, you have to develop this aspect, that aspect. From the broadest perspective, just make a difference in people's lives somehow. Mm-hmm. Help improve the human condition, help alleviate the tragedy, any one of the aspects. There's so many different types of suffering, so much needless man-caused suffering. There's any number of ways. So I know it's very broad, but really what we're doing for is helping the human condition.
I think that probably goes precisely back to the nature of the challenge, right? The fact that it's about crowdsourcing, it's about not a call for proposals that's been put out on a specific topic, but it's about getting the ideas from the people who are actually in the field of the issues. Miguel, what do you see as the biggest, from the interim government's perspective, some of the biggest wins that the challenge could deliver, and frankly, what do you see as needed most?
Well, I think the first step, and it's already made it, it's to give a better understanding of what's happening inside. And this opportunity the USAID and the IDB is giving to people inside of a country to start dreaming about solutions, not only to suffer the solutions, not only to survive the situation, the ability to dream, to propose, and actually at the end of the process to deliver some kind of help or assistance inside of a country is really important. I think we have at least two big challenges ahead. First, we need a better understanding of how deep the humanitarian emergency is in Venezuela, in the rest of the world. I'm more than happy of the understanding here in USA have about what's happening in Venezuela, but in some part of the world, sometimes it gets lost in the middle of the analysis, what is the current situation and what's the real source of the situation we're having inside. And the second challenge, I think, is to open a real humanitarian space in Venezuela. Right now, the humanitarian works being harassed. Yesterday, they did a raid against two organizations who delivered assistance, Rescate and Prepara Familia. In the past weeks, they're trying to stop the humanitarian workers. They don't have visas. We don't have international NGOs registered inside of a country. We don't have the logistical cluster of the UN being developed because the regime wants to take control of the last mile of coverage and trying to divert the aid for political purpose. So I think this effort to open a humanitarian space is a huge effort in which all the political actors, all the social actors, and this kind of initiative, like Better Together, from the IDB and USAID goes in that direction, to make the people aware, but also to get the people involved in trying to build solutions. It's not only a matter of UN, of the US government or the interim government. We have to start making a broader effort to bring everyone in the table and to build some common ground on how to address the situation.
I think it's worth echoing a point Miguel made earlier on. Everything we're doing in the Venezuela challenge, we're dealing with symptoms. The root cause is the Maduro regime. So everything we're trying to do is we're trying to alleviate, trying to make the suffering less somehow. But what Miguel was saying before, at the end of the day, it's the Maduro regime, it's the heart of all of this suffering. And until that root cause is addressed, the suffering will continue. So the Venezuela challenge is an attempt to make a difference, but we cannot forget what the root cause is.
And that difference, maybe if I, just to add to the question earlier, Jason, about what do we hope this will really deliver in practice, and soon actually, because part of the challenge is that the methodology and what's involved is agile, and we can actually move fairly quickly in just 3 months, gathering these many applications in a short time, being able to have some of those real solutions delivering results. Is that what we hope for also is that the situation in the countries where those who have left are also improves, not just for Venezuelans, but for the host communities, and that those relations between Venezuelans and their host communities are actually positive, that they are seen as having a positive impact in those countries as well. We think it's possible. Some of the examples that we've seen that have come through already, as I said, deal, for example, with how to use skills in a different country, how to transfer skills from country to country. This is an issue that, of course, affects migrants, but it also affects every citizen in these countries. And when you even take that as an opportunity to leapfrog and to think of, and what are those skills of the future that you need, you could actually take a situation which is a desperate situation into an opportunity to really make a difference long term for everyone in those countries. And I think that's really, really important, because we could make a big difference in creating a very positive relation between the Venezuelans in those countries and their communities.
I'm hopeful this, I mean, the challenge can provide this kind of catalytic effect, right, insofar as improving lives in the communities. And, going back to your point, John and Miguel as well, and I think you find a receptive audience to this as well, in reinforcing the fact that majority has to get out, right, that we need a democratic transition, and as all of you know, here at the Atlantic Council, we are 150% at least committed to leading a campaign in that regard. I want to go, one other point about the challenge, which I find particularly innovative, is that it seeks to foster solutions across borders. Some of the thought behind the challenge is about providing practical solutions in Venezuela, but at the same time, that solution could also be replicable in Colombia, or it could be concurrent in both countries or multiple countries across the region. If you could explain, John, a little bit more about the idea behind this cross-border collaborative effort.
Clearly, if you take a step back, the thematic rubric by which we're approaching this is that the best solutions are the ones created closest to the problem. So no one here in Washington, D.C. will understand the problem facing Venezuelans right there on the ground, like the people Venezuelans on the ground in Colombia, Ecuador, Brazil, or wherever they might be. So the cross-border aspect of this is that we're open to anyone from any one of the countries, to people who have their own take on their own aspect of the nature of the problem. It's not for us to dictate, this is what's suited for your community. Let's hear from those communities. And to the extent that if a solution that springs up from one community can be replicated in other countries, all the better. But the theme is the best solutions are the ones that are designed closest to the problem. That's why we're opening it up and letting people who know what the problem, who have ideas, here's the platform where they can bring it to bear. We're so very excited about this.
And those solutions need to be practical and scalable.
Absolutely, practical and scalable.
To make that happen, we set out 3 types of partners, because we can't do it alone. Foundational partners, USAID and IDB, and hopefully Canada, other have shown interest. Secondly, operational partners that can provide financing and also operational support on the ground, close to where the solutions are being developed. And thirdly, outreach partners. So we have at the moment 6 operational partners and 15 outreach partners. And thank you very much to the Atlantic Council for being an outreach partner. So I think that's partly what enables being so close to the ground. At the same time, as I said, as the Innovation Lab of the IDB Group, our mandate is to use innovation and to bring more inclusion and to address solutions for vulnerable population. But we leverage the IDB Group, and we're doing it as part of an effort of the entire IDB Group. So the representatives of the IDB Group in each of the countries are extremely involved in this, and will also be supporting the efforts in each of the countries.
And another exciting element of this is that it's open-ended. This isn't like a one-time competition. All right, here are winners for different categories. Thanks for playing. No. So we're going to announce winners, and we're still going to be able to funding competitions. So we were just talking about this in the room before we started. We are so excited when the first batch of winners come out, because we know there's going to be people on the sidelines who are going, oh my God, I could have thought about that. Oh, that one? Oh, I got a better idea than that. So the open-ended aspect of it with the financing, and if more partners want to come in, we'll keep funding it. So we're very excited about that. And the upcoming batch of winners, we know it's going to create another wave of application, and that's the way it should be.
And Miguel, as we look to look ahead to this year, 2020, I personally see this year as even more pivotal than 2019, and very concerned about the continued deterioration in humanitarian rights and access to basic goods of Venezuelans. What do you see looking ahead to the year? What is your top concerns? And John and Irene were mentioning as well the number of Venezuelan groups that are applying for the challenge. What do you see as the biggest challenges for some of those groups that would be applying for the challenge?
Well, the first challenge, and I think John said really well at the beginning, is how to scale up inside of a country in this context. How you scale up the assistance in a country with a regime who have paramilitaries, who have irregular groups, who down the south of the Orinoco River is a total different country from the bubbles in the cities. It's reappearing eradicated illness. It's places in the country that it's not only hard to reach for the international organizations, it's hard to reach for everyone because it's in control of irregular groups or terrorist groups right now in the mining area. I think we have an important challenge also, that is move all the international community to understand really well the balance between the consequence and the cost. We have and we need to assist the refugees and the migrants. We have and we need to provide assistance to the people inside of the country, but also we have and we need to keep the discussion about a transition in Venezuela. It's impossible to the UN right now to develop the system inside of a country with the regime taking control of all the logistics. It's impossible to the Red Cross family to do everything they could inside of a country with the regime blocking these kind of efforts. But also, I think bringing all the people to build common solutions to common problems is another problem for the regime. I think right now, if we see how they closed last year, while the vaccination effort in Venezuela remain alive only because of international cooperation to PAHO, the regime was spending more than 200 million euros in weapons, uniforms, and repression tools against the populations. And that's the priorities. While President Guaido is going all around the world speaking about the humanitarian emergency and asking the world to provide and to help the Venezuelans, you have a regime trying to remain in control and fighting against all. I will close with this idea. A country in which, and I will speak for Petare, that's my electoral district, a country which in the capital, the people have more than 6 months without water. People have to go into the worst mechanisms to find food, even prostitution. Right now, that's happening in my country, that's happening in my electoral district, while a guy tried to live as a king. You don't have a real sense of urgency of what we need to do inside. 12 years ago, I went with Juan Pablo to Barrio Bolívar in Petare. Juan Pablo was part of a student movement in that moment also. And we start to see a lot of problems that we never imagined it will come to the level it is right now. And I think the biggest challenge we have as an interim government is not only the transition, is to renew the sense of urgency of how deep the crisis is inside of Venezuela.
Thank you, Miguel. I want to make sure we have time for questions. If you have a question, raise your hand, and while people are circulating with microphones. And again, if you're watching, feel free to tweet your question using the hashtag #ACVenezuela, and the question will be shared with me. See in the great. Please, if you could just say your name and affiliation, and then your question.
Yes. Hi. My name is Alicia. I'm coming from New York. I'm working in a nonprofit called Aid for AIDS. And I'm just, I have a question about the challenge. So I know that you say that it has 4 tiers. I was reading the guidelines. And I know we have been working with the humanitarian aid, with humanitarian assistance and everything in Venezuela for the last 4 years. And we have we have 2 programs and helping people with HIV in Venezuela. So we have a program already implemented, and I was just trying to figure out if we can just apply it with the challenge, just to expand this program we have. If we have this challenge, we can just expand this program that we already have implemented, because we already tried it, we already implemented, we know it's successful, but we want to expand our reach. So I'm assuming that with these 4 tiers that you have, one is for tested, and the other one is, I don't know how these 4 tiers work, because I know that's for 25,000 to 1.5 million. I don't know how this works.
Okay, fantastic. We'll take another question as well, and we can answer them together. Yeah, microphone. Yes, please.
Hi, Colin Murphy with AVSI Foundation. We're very proud to be outreach partners with the challenge. My question is, for some of the countries that may be getting less attention from applicants so far as host countries for displaced Venezuelans, maybe Brazil, Chile, Peru, how do you see those countries fitting in possibly with the challenge, and what are some opportunities for potential projects there?
Great. Let's take those two questions, and then we'll go back to the more.
Well, I'll start with the latter, and I'll give Irene the chance for the technical one on the region. So,
I can tell why.
That's the benefit of going first, John.
Un poquitín, right? Well, having discussions with the USAID counterpart in Chile and working with my mission in Brazil, so it may be not because of a lack of interest or lack of innovation in any one particular country. It just may be we just haven't gotten to the marketing or got things set up. So one of the things we had in our mind, Irene and since the launch, Irene and I have talked about the possibility of putting on a little road show and doing events in different countries as well. But I wouldn't extrapolate too much from the fact that you don't have that many from Brazil or Chile. Don't extrapolate too much from that.
Irene, you get the technical question.
Thanks for the other question. There are, the focus of the challenge is really to tap into innovative solutions that can help leapfrog, that can, as I said, that are, and I think Miguel also mentioned, that are scalable in the different parts of the region and in Venezuela. So to the extent that that fits those characteristics, we'd be happy to look at it. The 4 tiers are meant so that we can reach out to those that maybe don't have something that is, let's say, market proven yet, but it's just a concept at the 25,000 level, and give an opportunity for those, again, not just with the financing, but also with the coaching, with contacts, with networks, all the way up to ideas that are fairly mature, but that have that ingredient or that component of innovation that can help think of a different way of addressing the problem. So if that fits those characteristics, we'd be definitely happy to look at it.
Great, thank you. A question over here.
Anthony Garrett from Internews, and thank you for your leadership, really. My question is, given the toxic nature of Russia and Cuba, what gives you hope? Question for the panel.
For me? I can tell you, and for...
Is there another question? I'll take 2 questions at the same time. No, okay. Yeah, please.
Yeah, that question for me is really easy. What gives me hopes? Yesterday I was speaking with my team of Petare, and if you can hear how the people who struggle for freedom in Venezuela speak about the future they dream, it's impossible to lose the hope. I am right now outside of my country. I am right now living in a different place because I was sentenced on May 14 of 2019. And every time I see another member of the parliament in the front line, knowing what they're risking, knowing what is the real danger of fighting against a regime and doing it in the way they do to set the example to the rest of the population, I feel hope. But I will give you my biggest reason. I want to be back in my house. I don't want to see my mom through a screen of a cell phone. I don't want to see my grandmother in the last days only through the screen of my cell phone. I don't want my country only to be speaking about as an humanitarian emergency or a complex situation that is no way to turn it back. My biggest hope is that at the end of this whole sacrifice we're living, it will worth it. Because my generation, I was only 10 years old when Chavez arrived to power. My generation has to be the generation of the never more. Never again. Never again one guy decide on behalf of all the people in the country, but never again the hate and the division of the population have to be more important than the real solutions and the common ground. So I think the hope is the biggest flag, is the biggest strength, but also is the only way to fight against a regime like Nicolás Maduro. Thank you.
So I'd like to echo, so part of it is the indomitable spirit of Venezuelans like Miguel. but there's also some structural things that I think also give hope. Recent press reports are showing how the Venezuela government is running low on cash reserves. This is not sustainable. Cuba certainly can't support them with cash reserves, and, well, what's Russia going to be doing? So I think what you saw, the moves, I think the world, even people who are on the sidelines are realizing just what a terrible regime this is. Take, for example, what happened with keeping Guaido and the National Assembly out of the building. Then you're getting letters from countries who had not heretofore been involved. It's becoming more and more evident. Now we're seeing other traction in the Europeans. The world is waking up. His cash reserves are dwindling. The indomitable spirit of Venezuelans like Miguel aren't going to go away. I think there's hope.
Miguel, and I look just in the front row here at Venezuelans and across the audience who are we as the United States are so lucky to have here, but give so much hope of what the future of Venezuela will be when you can freely return to your own country. I want to also ask. Well, first of all, mention as well. We haven't talked about, and I see the DCM from the Colombian embassy here, and just recognize the great work that Colombia has been doing in supporting the Venezuelan migrants and refugees, and the incredible work that the Colombian government has done and continues to do to support them at a national level and also at a municipal level. I think that's important to applaud the efforts of Colombia as an important partner in this effort. And it goes to my last question. I know we're almost out of time, and we'll take one from the audience as well. But John, how can the region become a more active partner in these efforts? This is an IDB effort. I assume if there's opportunity to scale up, that would be well received. What do you see as additional ways in which not only the region, but frankly the global community in an optimal scenario can be a more active partner?
Well, from the regional perspective, countries like Colombia, they couldn't be stronger partners. The Duque administration has been so extremely helpful with the Venezuelan crisis, and countries across the region who have these populations of Venezuelans, either caminantes going through their country to a further destination, or people who have their end state there, they're suffering because of their hospitality and generosity. That's why USAID, and we're encouraging other world donors to help. It's a regional crisis to help not just the Venezuelans, but those host communities who are being so generous. So the regional commitment is there. You can't avoid it. Again, this is the largest displacement of human beings in the history of the Western Hemisphere. You can't avoid this. What's heartening is, trying to get to the world stage and understand, Guaido leadership with the Europeans, trying to get the Europeans to come on board. This is a world tragedy. So happy to see my colleagues at State Department and others, Guaido, working along those fronts.
A technical question, Irene. I'm sure some people, for folks who want to apply for the challenge, go to the website. The instructions are pretty clear. Any other advice you would provide?
Well, I think you've seen it. juntosesmejorve.org. That's the window to get all the guidelines for applying. But there is also, if you need further guidance besides what's there, there are going to be different resources, including webinars and other things to do it, and also somebody who asked about, in the countries where we know that there are a lot of Venezuelans, but we have received relatively few proposals yet. We will make a special effort to get to those as well. So that's the first step. I would also, I think, as John said, I would encourage everyone to stay tuned at what the solutions win this first round. We'll be working really hard to review this massive amount of applications to get the best ones in shape. and share with you what those are, and hopefully that will give other ideas and will incentivize others to share with us, I think, this common sense of urgency to do something concrete. And I want to thank the team, Juan Pablo López Gros, Luben Petkov, and many others at the IDB who've been committed to this for the last many months, and will continue to work really hard to make a difference.
Irene, John, on behalf of I think everyone in this room and those watching and others, just I want to again thank you and thank the IDB and USAID for this incredibly important effort, and of course Miguel for all of the tireless work you do on behalf of the Venezuelan people every day, and for all the members of the diplomatic community here and others whose countries have taken in Venezuelan migrants and refugees, and all the incredible work that you've done. On my team, I want to thank Angela Chavez who put this event together, for all of her incredible work in this event. Reminder as well, if you didn't get to participate in the virtual reality documentary beforehand, you can do so afterwards when you exit this room to the right. Walking for Freedom, we'll have multiple headsets available there. That's an opportunity for those of you who haven't seen the experience firsthand the journey of Venezuelan migrants and refugees. It's a 15-minute documentary to do that at least through virtual reality. Again, thank you all for joining us today, and look forward to the next time. Thank you.